Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy Quest podcast. I'm your host, and I'm going to be taking you through all 32 teams in the NFL. We're going to go through trades, we're going to go through rookies, and we're going to go through some of the important news you need to know about each individual player. At the very end, we're going to run through some of the quick questions, and we'll see how it goes. All right, starting off our list today, we're going to go through the AFC East. In the AFC East, we're going with the Buffalo Bills first. Not much has changed for the Bills. We have Josh Allen at quarterback, Devin Singletary at running back, James Cook at running back. Wide receivers are Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Jamison Crowder. Tight end is Dawson Knox, and their defense is expected to be the number one overall defense this year. Things to know about the Bills. James Cook, a running back this year, is a rookie. Actually, brother of Dalvin Cook, if that matters to you at all. Expected to probably get a few snaps. We don't know actually his usage quite yet. Stephon Diggs, one of the number one overall receivers last year. And Gabriel Davis had a great second year last year. Actually scored about 4 touchdowns. Almost broke some receiving records for the postseason last season. Dawson Knox, unfortunately, is away from training camp after the passing of his brother. He is expected to be back in the next week or so. And then the defense number one overall pretty much speaks for itself. Miami Dolphins are second. Quite a bit of changes at running back, but we'll start at quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa. Running back is Chase Edmonds from the Cardinals, Raheem Mostert from the 49ers, and Sony Michel from the Rams. Wide receiver, the big change there that you see is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill came from the Chiefs, signing a huge contract, expected to make a bunch of money. Jalen Waddle is their second-year player. Cedric Wilson came over from Dallas. Their tight end is Mike Gesicki, and they're expected to be about 14th overall for their defense. Patriots, not a whole lot changes here either for the Patriots. Mac Jones is their second-year player. Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, and James White are their running backs. James White actually retired a week ago, so he will no longer be playing for the Patriots. We're going to go the wide receivers, Devontae Parker. He's actually coming over from the Dolphins. Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne's younger, newer players. Their two tight ends are Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry has more of the receiving role, while Jonnu Smith has more of the blocking role, but still will take away from some of the receiving for tight end. And they have a pretty strong defense at number 6 for over the NFL. Coming in here with the Jets, not a great season last year, but have drafted probably one of the best drafts this year. Zach Wilson coming in actually ended up hurting his knee, tore his meniscus, and from this point he could be out somewhere 4 to 6 weeks. It sounds like Joe Flacco is actually going to take over for that time. Maybe they'll play better, maybe they won't. Joe Flacco, pretty seasoned veteran, so we'll see. Running backs, Breece Hall, he's a new rookie. Michael Carter is a second-year player, and Tevin Coleman is a veteran. Wide receivers, we have Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore is a second-year player. Garrett Wilson is a rookie from OSU. Projected to do well, but it's also the Jets, so we'll see. Tight end is CJ Uzomah. Defense supposed to be one of the worst, is 28 overall. I doubt any of us will be having them in their fantasy league this year. Moving on to the AFC West, probably one of the bigger powerhouses of conferences this year. Mostly because of the big change here. Denver Broncos signed Russell Wilson to the Broncos. It's going to change a lot. We're going to probably see a lot more touchdowns coming out of the Denver Broncos. Running backs include Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, who are looking at a 50-50 to 60-40 split. Wide receivers are Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick tore his ACL in the preseason games this year, so he will be out for the rest of the season, so you can expect someone to take his place. Tight end is Albert Okwuegbunam, rookie this year. Could be good to work with Russell Wilson, but we'll see. It's also, rookie tight ends usually don't do too fantastic. Defense is looking very strong at number 4 overall. Moving on to the Chiefs, most of us know almost all of these players at this point, but quarterback, infamous Patrick Mahomes. Running back is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ronald Jones, and then wide receivers are Juju Smith-Schuster, Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, tight end Travis Kelce, and looking to have the number 12 defense overall this year. So we're going to start with Juju Smith-Schuster. He's coming from the Steelers. Most of us recognize him from his TikTok dances, if you are on TikTok or know what TikTok is. And then Mecole Hardman was on the Chiefs last year, but Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or MVS, came from Green Bay. They signed a big 2 to 3 year contract. Quite a pretty penny for him. And then the tight end, Travis Kelce, I'm sure we're all familiar with him and what he is capable of. So third on this conference is we have the Raiders. So Derek Carr is their quarterback. Our running backs are Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. Our wide receivers are Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Demarcus Robinson, tight end Darren Waller, and not expected to have that great of a defense this year, ranked number 26 overall. So the biggest change here is Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is coming over from Green Bay. Probably going to take a lot of the targets away from a lot of these wide receivers. Josh Jacobs is actually right now one of the only starting quarterback or running backs this year. Kenyon Drake was actually released from the team, so he's a free agent now. Someone else will probably be looking to pick him up. Darren Waller looks like he's been dealing with a hamstring injury through training camp. Nothing major, probably just a little rest and a little less playing time will get him through it. So moving on, we're going to go right to the Los Angeles Chargers. Probably a fan favorite. Lots of powerful fantasy players in here. Justin Herbert at quarterback, expected to be one of the top quarterbacks for fantasy this year. Running backs Austin Eckler and Isaiah Spiller. Wide receivers are Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Joshua Palmer. And then their tight end is Gerald Everett. With a defense, strong top 10, number 10 overall in the NFL. Justin Herbert going into his second year after a hot rookie start last year. Austin Eckler, a seasoned veteran. Isaiah Spiller is going to be your rookie this year. Not expected to get a whole lot of playing time, but if Austin Eckler were to go down, he might be the guy to look to pick up. Wide receivers are all people we're familiar with except for Josh Palmer. He is a rookie this year. And then Gerald Everett is coming over from the Rams. Moving on to the AFC North. We're starting off good with the Ravens. So a lot of powerful players in this, and with this team too. Lamar Jackson is the quarterback. Running backs J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Wide receivers Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Porsche, tight end Mark Andrews. Defense is looking to be at a respectable number 11 this year. Running backs this year for Ravens are going to be a little bit sketchy. J.K. Dobbins last season tore his ACL. They're unsure if he's even expected to play week 1. They're hopeful, but you know how coaches are. Mostly optimistic, don't want the other team to know how well the recovery is going. Gus Edwards also had a knee injury that kept him out last season. He also is struggling in training camp, looking to come back, but it's not looking good. He probably won't be ready for week 1 either. Other than that, all other players are healthy. We all know Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews are great players. Nothing to be surprised from there. Another fan favorite team, we're going with the Cincinnati Bengals. We got Joe Shiesty or Joe Burrow. Running backs are Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine. Wide receivers are Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. Their tight end this year is Hayden Hurst. Not a phenomenal defense. You know, bottom half looks like number 20 overall for their defense this year. Not much for the Bengals this year. Joe Burrow, well before training camp, had a ruptured appendix. He had that taken care of, but he'd be ready to go for week 1. The only other person that's dealing with any issues is T. Higgins. He's nursing his shoulder, but that was an injury from last year. But he's been participating in practice and nothing to be worried about at this point. So we'll just jump right to the next team. A lot of controversy with this team, the Cleveland Browns. Quarterback was Deshaun Watson. Running back Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Dearness Johnson. Wide receivers are Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell. Tight ends are David Njoku, and their defense is looking to be a number 15 overall, so right kind of in the middle of the pack. Big news with Deshaun Watson. He has had a suspension. We won't go into why, but currently 11 games with a $5 million fine. So Jacoby Brissett is looking to take over for him this season. Week 11, for fantasy purposes, you're getting into December, which is your playoffs. So it's more than likely that you're not going to want to pick this guy up unless you have, a real belief in Deshaun Watson coming off the bench after 11 weeks. Kareem Hunt requested a trade from the Browns, but the Browns declined it. Could mean nothing, could mean something, so keep an eye on that. The only other person that is worth mentioning is Amari Cooper is coming over from the Cowboys. Should help with their wide receiver core, give them some new fresh talent, but without the presence of Deshaun Watson, it might not be that great for him, unfortunately. So moving on to the Steelers. As of right now, Mitch Trubisky is listed as their number 1 overall quarterback. Running backs are Najee Harris and Benny Snell. Wide receivers Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and George Pickens. Their tight end is Pat Freiermuth, and have a literal middle-of-the-pack defense at number 16. Mitch Trubisky is coming actually from the Buffalo Bills, signed by the Steelers to kind of fill that gap after the retirement of Big Ben. Surprisingly, their rookie that they drafted, Kenny Pickett, has been showing a lot of promise, had been looking very good in preseason games. So that quarterback status could change here in the next few weeks or midway through the season, depending on how the Steelers play this year. Running back Najee Harris, he's expected to take a majority of the workload for running back. Wide receivers Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool are coming from staying on the team from last year. And George Pickens is a rookie who has also played very well in his preseason games. Tight end Pat Freiermuth, like I said, second-year tight end, did actually pretty well last year for a rookie. Moving on to the AFC South. AFC South, we're starting with the Houston Texans. Probably, one of the worst teams last year. Quarterback is their second-year player, Davis Mills. Running back, Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead. Wide receivers, Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, Chris Conley. Tight end is Brevin Jordan. And their defense is number 32, the second worst in the league. Not much to talk about fantasy-wise here. There's nobody here that's really going to impress you. I would be very surprised if there's anybody that really stands out. The person that's probably going to stand out the most is Brandon Cooks. Somebody's got to get all those catches, all those targets. More than likely going to be Brandon Cooks. Hopefully Davis Mills steps it up as a second-year quarterback and does better. The only other thing to mention is they did draft a running back. Dameon Pierce could potentially take over the backfield, but that will be much later in the season. Another big team with a bunch of changes here. Biggest changes at quarterback, Indianapolis Colts trade for Matt Ryan. The running backs are Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Michael Pittman, Alex Pierce, Paris Campbell. Tight end is Mo Alley Cox. Defense is number 5 overall, so looking very strong. Besides the change of Matt Ryan trading from the Colts to the Falcons, there's nobody else here. Jonathan Taylor is probably the number 1 overall pick this year in fantasy drafts if you don't already have him on your team. Or maybe you could debate Christian McCaffrey with that as well. There is no other significant news. Everyone's healthy. Everything's looking good. Hopefully the upgrade with Matt Ryan will lead them to a better season than last year. Team not looking so good is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So their quarterback, second-year player Trevor Lawrence, with running back Travis Etienne, James Robinson. Wide receivers are Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, and Zay Jones. Tight end is Evan Ingram, and their defense is number 30th overall, so another bottom-tier defense. Trevor Lawrence, no new news on him. He is looking healthy. Hopefully he steps it up this year, too, after a year under his belt. Travis Etienne had a season-ending foot injury last year, but he is expected to be the lead back. He was their number 1 overall draft 2 years ago. So hopefully he's ready to go week 1. James Robinson was their running back week 1, but had an Achilles tear last year, but they're hopeful he'll be back week 1. So chances are Travis Etienne is going to start the season. James Robinson is going to come into a hopefully week 1, week 2, get a little bit of work, and he'll be involved after that point. Their wide receivers, Christian Kirk is a new name. He is getting traded over from the Cardinals. He got paid a pretty penny to come over to Jacksonville, especially if they weren't the greatest team out there. Tennessee Titans, couple changes here. Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, running back Derrick Henry and Hassan Haskins. Wide receivers Robert Woods, Treylon Burks, and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Tight end is Austin Hooper. Defense is number 17, middle of the pack. Big change here. Wide receiver Robert Woods coming over from the Los Angeles Rams, and Treylon Burks is a new name. He is a rookie. Actually, they traded away A.J. Brown, drafted Treylon Burks, and then signed Robert Woods from the Rams. So that's the new wide receiver core for the Tennessee Titans. Keep in mind, Robert Woods did have an ACL injury last year, did end his season, but that was at the very beginning of the year, so he's had plenty of time to recover and come back. Everybody else is feeling healthy. Austin Hooper was traded from the Falcons. We'll just move right on then to the NFC East. So jumping into the Cowboys first. Dak Prescott is their quarterback, Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard at running backs, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Jalen Tolbert at wide receiver. Tight end is Jolton Schultz, and a number 9 overall defense. Not looking too shabby there. Everything looks pretty much the same. Like I said earlier, the biggest change here is the trade for Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is no longer on the Dallas Cowboys. He's at the Browns. So what we're looking at here mostly is CeeDee Lamb taking over the number 1 spot. Jalen Tolbert is their new rookie. And Dalton Schultz at a tight end did play very well last year as well. So CeeDee Lamb does have a little bit of a foot injury. It's actually a cut on his foot, so it's nothing to worry about. He's just been resting in practice as that heals up. Like I said, Jalen Tolbert is the rookie. And that's pretty much it for the Dallas Cowboys. We'll move right into the Giants. Daniel Jones at quarterback, Saquon Barkley at running back, Matt Breida at running back. Wide receiver core is Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney. Tight end is Ricky Seals-Jones, and another lower end defense at number 23. Nothing to be excited about fantasy-wise besides maybe Saquon Barkley not being drafted super high. Hopefully he's healthy this season. He's been injured the last couple seasons. Hopefully we get to see the old Saquon back. Other than that, the only thing exciting may be Kadarius Toney was a rookie last year, did show some flashes, but that's about it for this team. All right, next is the Philadelphia Eagles. Quarterback Jalen Hurts, running back Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. Wide receiver core A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Quez Watkins. Tight end is Dallas Goedert, and a number 19 overall defense. Might be blocking it by my table here. Everything's pretty much stayed the same besides, I said earlier, the addition of A.J. Brown from the Titans. Hopefully one of the teams that step it up this year. Devontae Smith was a rookie last year, played very well. Other than that, pretty boring team. No injuries as of right now, so they're doing pretty good. So we'll move right on to the now Washington Commanders. It's important to remember the name changes. They're no longer the Washington football team. They traded for Carson Wentz. Their running backs are Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick. Wide receivers are Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson. Tight end is Logan Thomas, and a number 24 overall defense. Really surprising after a lot of the draft picks they've tried to take to beef up their defense a little bit. With this team, Carson Wentz coming over from the Colts, which is why they added why they added him to the Commanders. Antonio Gibson is the big talk of the Washington camp right now. he has been working with the punt team and special teams, which is not usual for a number 1 overall running back or for that team. It might insinuate a little bit that he might not be getting all of the carries. It might start being more of a split from Antonio Gibson to Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissic. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson all looking healthy. Logan Thomas is the same tight end from last year. Like I said, bottom tier defense this year. We'll jump right into the This is actually the NFC West, not the AFC West. My producers apparently are not very good at their job. So, with that being said, Arizona Cardinals leading it off first. Kyler Murray is still doing great. Running backs James Conner, Darrell Williams, wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, A.J. Green. Tight end is Zach Ertz, and defense is number 18, another middle of the pack defense here. Big news for this team. Kyler Murray is dealing with a wrist injury, but he is still participating in practice, so probably nothing to worry about for him. You'll notice that the running back group has gotten smaller. James Conner has taken the lead role. Darrell Williams has been signed from the Chiefs over to there, but there is no longer any Chase Edmonds here. He is now at the Dolphins, which we talked about the second team we talked about. Wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, he is currently suspended. DeAndre Hopkins is for 6 games for performance-enhancing drugs. Marquise Brown, or some of you might know him as Hollywood Brown, he is coming over from the Baltimore Ravens. A.J. Green still sticking around, another old veteran. Tight end, Zach Ertz, and like I said about the defense, middle of the pack. Los Angeles Rams. So quite a bit of issues here at the Los Angeles Rams. Matt Stafford is their quarterback. Cam Akers at running back, Darrell Henderson at running back, Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee at tight end. Defense is number 8 overall, another top 10 defense. Matt Stafford's been dealing with some shoulder or elbow soreness. Nothing that he hasn't dealt with before. He dealt with it with the Lions, dealt with it last year, but it is something to keep an eye on to make sure that the elbow soreness doesn't get any worse. Running backs, Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers is dealing with a soft tissue injury as well as Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers had the Achilles issue last year, so that's something to keep an eye out. He tore his Achilles. Darrell Henderson was in and out, injured, not injured, injured, not injured. But now they're both dealing with a soft tissue injury. Wide receivers, Cooper Kupp was the number 1 overall last year. Allen Robinson is coming over from the Bears, expected to take a large role in this offense. Van Jefferson is still there, and everybody else is the same. Everybody else is doing great. San Francisco 49ers, big change on the quarterback side is now Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo is no longer the quarterback for the 49ers. Running backs are Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson. Wide receivers, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings. Tight end is George Kittle, and expected to have the number 3 overall defense. Very strong defense this year. Elijah Mitchell, dealing with a hamstring injury during training camp, something to keep an eye on. Sometimes these hamstring injuries can turn into something much worse. Not always does, though. Sometimes it does just heal up and they're fine, ready to go. There's no other news for anybody else. Everybody's all healthy, coming from the everyone's coming back besides Trey Lance. And then we're going to jump right into the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks have had a little bit of a change as well. Quarterbacks have been all over the place this year. Quarterback this year for Seahawks is Drew Lock, coming from the Broncos. Running back is Rashad Penny and Ken Walker. Wide receiver is DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Freddie Swain. Their tight end is Noah Fant, and their defense is looking at about a 29th overall. So actually surprising for the Seahawks. Usually have a great defense. They're looking at about 29th this year. Drew Lock and Noah Fant, their quarterback and tight end, were actually the trade for Russell Wilson. So Seahawks get Drew Lock and Noah Fant, and Broncos get Russell Wilson. Kenneth Walker, there was talks of Rashad and Kenneth flip-flopping 50-50 on the running portion. Rashad Penny, after a little bit of injuries here and there throughout training camp, is pretty much ready to go. Ken Walker, however, had a hernia that he had to take care of. It was not a sports hernia, which is worse than a regular hernia. So he's actually looking to hopefully be ready for week 1. Moving right along then, we're going to jump right into everybody's favorite conference. And like I said, my producers are not very good. This is the NFC North. Chicago Bears starting it off. Quarterback is Justin Fields with running backs David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Wide receivers Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, and Velus Jones. Tight end is Cole Kmet with a low-end defense at number 25. Everybody's pretty much coming back from last year. If anything, we've lost more players for this team than they have gained anything. A lot of young people in here, Justin Fields, Cole Kmet, Khalil Herbert, Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle. All those guys are new within the last 3 years. So, very, very young team. David Montgomery is dealing with an undisclosed injury, but is set to start week 1. So that's a good thing. We'll move right on to the Detroit Lions. So, quarterback is Jared Goff. Running backs DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Wide receivers Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Shark, Jameson Williams. Tight end TJ Hawkinson. And their defense is another low-end defense at number 27. I doubt that surprises anybody. So far, everybody's healthy. Jameson Williams is their new rookie. He did get drafted after an ACL injury, but they're expecting him to hopefully start playing midway through the season. So it was their intention when they drafted him is what they did. So everybody else is looking good. We're going to move right along. DJ Shark, actually, he did come from the Jaguars. So he's a new addition to this team. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a second-year player. If you don't watch Hard Knocks, and definitely tell you to, he has a pretty cool interview at one moment. Really has a lot of grit, as the Lions would say. So moving right along to the Green Bay Packers. Big question of the year was, is Aaron Rodgers going to move on? He did not, accepted a nice big contract. Running back Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon. Wide receivers are Allen Lazard, Christian Watson, and Sammy Watkins. Tight end is Robert Tonyan, and a middle-of-the-pack defense. Aaron Rodgers, like I said, still here. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, still from the same team. Allen Lazard, because coming back this year, he was a rookie last year. Sammy Watkins is a free agent that has moved over multiple teams. I can't even remember what team he was on last year. Christian Watson is their new rookie. So that's something to keep an eye on. The biggest thing you're missing here is Davante Adams. Davante Adams, like I said, is now at the Raiders. He is no longer at Green Bay. So a good thing to keep your eye on. Move right along to the Minnesota Vikings. Quarterback is Kirk Cousins, with running back Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison. Wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne. Tight end is Irv Smith with a number 21 overall defense, so even lower half of the league. Not much has changed here. This is actually almost an identical team to last year. The crazy thing is nobody's actually hurt from this team. So you're going to get pretty much exactly what you expected last year. You're just going to get a more seasoned Justin Jefferson, who is expected to do great. But that's pretty much it. Dalvin Cook is a year older, so keep that in mind. But this team's looking good and strong this year. We'll move right along to our last conference, the NFC South. Starting off with the Atlanta Falcons. Quarterback is Marcus Mariota. Running back is Cordell Patterson. Tight end is Kyle Pitts. Number 32 overall defense with wide receivers Drake London, Brian Edwards, and Olamide Zaccheaus. Lot of changes here. Marcus Mariota, the new quarterback after Matt Ryan left for the Colts. Marcus was signed as a free agent to come play for the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons also did draft a rookie this year, so keep in mind that he may or may not be finishing out the year as a quarterback. Cordell Patterson had a great season last year at a very old age for a running back. Kyle Pitts going into his second year, expected to do well. Drake London is their new wide receiver, drafted in the first round. Brian Edwards and Zaccheaus are both coming in from different teams. So, very young, inexperienced team. Expected to probably be one of the worst in the league this year, unfortunately. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers. A lot of changes here. Mostly the big thing, like I said earlier, a lot of quarterback changes. Baker Mayfield is now playing for Carolina Panthers. Their wide receivers consist of DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Terrace Marshall. Their running backs are Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard. Tight end is Tommy Tremblay. Defense, actually not as bad as I expected it to be, number 22 overall. Definitely an upgrade from Sam Darnold to Baker Mayfield. It's pretty nice. Hopefully that gives DJ Moore a little bit better outlook going into this season. DJ Moore is dealing with a little bit of shoulder soreness. Not anything, though, that's slowing him down from practicing. Everybody else is looking good. Christian McCaffrey has been feeling good, actually not injured for once, but you never know. A strong breeze could roll through Carolina, and he could lose both of his knees, so we'll find out. Moving on, we're going to go right into the Saints. Saints at quarterback is Jameson Williams. Running backs are Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. Wide receivers, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry. Tight end, Adam Troutman. And defense is number 7 overall. Really strong defense this year. Jameson Williams coming off of a ACL injury. Hopefully he'll be ready to go. Michael Thomas has been in and out with his foot last year. Didn't play the whole season. Chris Olave is their young new rookie. Jarvis Landry is coming over from the Browns. Other than that, we're hopeful that everything else goes well. Michael Thomas is dealing with an injury in camp right now, a hamstring injury to be specific. But like I said, hamstring injuries can vary from just a little bit sore and just need to rest to maybe there is something a little bit more serious. But teams do not disclose that very well during training camp. So, last and final team, saving one of the best for last, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Quarterback is Tom Brady, running back Leonard Fournette, tight end Cameron Brate. Wide receivers are Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, and Russell Gage. So, a lot of news spreading around here. Tom Brady actually retired last year. Spent about 30 days with his kids and decided it was time to go back into football. So, running back Leonard Fournette, he actually showed up to training camp almost 300 pounds. Way too big for a running back. So he's got some weight cutting to do. Sounds like that's going well, though. Wide receivers, Mike Evans is also dealing with a hamstring injury, but he's not practicing right now. It could just be for rest, but it's a little more concerning. Chris Godwin is still recovering from his ACL tear last year. May or may not be ready to go week 1. Everyone's saying he looks great, but at the same time, that's just great for his recovery. Doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to start week 1 and have you a 30-point fantasy game. One of the big additions here is Julio Jones signed a 1-year contract over from the Titans. Could be used. We'll see. Last year from the Titans wasn't anything superb, but you never know. Tom Brady might make a man out of him. And then Russell Gage is just another young stud that the Tampa Bay has been using over the last couple of years. So that does it for all 32 teams. We cruised through that. Like I said, if you need to go back, watch a certain team, maybe you got a couple keepers you need to talk about, go ahead and go through, pause, write stuff down, whatever you need to do. I know it was really confusing. But the good news is we have, like I said, a couple quick questions from some of the social media and even a couple questions from our home fantasy league that we always tune into. So we're going to jump right into the first question. This question is, what team will be the biggest underdog this year? So I'm taking this question not in a fantasy perspective. I'm just taking this question as a overall biggest underdog team that's going from, pretty much worst to potentially, making the playoffs. And it sounds kind of obnoxious, but it's the Lions. I mean, the new coaching staff, a couple of the additions of the players, a new defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, really think that they're going to come out stronger than what most people will take them for, and they're going to surprise a few teams out there with just the aggressiveness that they play with. So really looking forward to watching them play. We'll jump right into the second question. what team will have the biggest change? So this is the question I'm taking with fantasy perspective. I actually had to go through these slides and say, what team? There's a lot of teams, a lot of big changes this year for a lot of these teams. The biggest change where you're going to see mediocre players potentially becoming great players is the Denver Broncos. The addition of Russell Wilson from Drew Lock is going to be phenomenal. Cortland Sutton is going to be a surprisingly good receiver, along with Jerry Jeudy. I think he's going to treat them much like he treated DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Their tight end is a rookie, but if you're too focused on the two best wide receivers, it's really hard or easy to miss the tight end. So even the tight end probably will get some fantasy value. It's really cool to see just how a quarterback can change everything for a certain team. Third and final question actually comes from that home league that we follow, the Holy Grail, Quest for the Holy Grail home league. This question actually comes from April-Gill Smith. So not only did they combine their last names, but they decided combining their first names was cool too. But they said, will there be a handicap for bad weeks when players don't show up? I can't speak for the commissioner, but, if I was the commissioner, all I'd probably have to say is you should probably just play a little bit better, pick a little better players. But I'm not the commissioner, so that's not my call to make. But that's it for today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it helped just a little bit in the chaos of all of the confusion of changing of players and coaches and everything. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Good luck on your quest for the football Holy Grail.